Okay, so with all the main colours, the main camouflage applied and a couple of the detail colours as we've seen, the next stage on this model is to begin the weathering process. And to begin my weathering process, I'm going to be using an oil wash into the panel detail on this Seafire. It's the first step of quite a few in the finishing process. I still like to add a wash to models, although I have been tempering it recently using changing to different shades depending on which part of the model, which colour it's going over. So for this particular model, I'm going to be using a pale grey wash for the underside, and I'm going to be darkening it somewhat for the topside colour, because as you can see on a temperate sea scheme, it really is quite a dark camouflage scheme. So I think it does need a darker colour on top to stand out. Many kinds of oil paints on the market. I use a mixture of these MIG Productions Abteilung oils and more traditional Winsor Newton oil paints, which you can get from any art store. These are from various model retailers. And for a thinner, I use standard white spirit, which is available certainly here in the UK from any DIY store. So what I'm going to use for the underside is a mixed, quite pale grey. So I'm going to use a little bit of Payne's grey, and I'm going to temper that somewhat. I'm going to lighten it up with a good bit of Abteilung colour 100 here. 100 faded grey, hope you can see that. Okay, and then I'm going to add some of the enamel thinner to my colour cup, or to the paint container here. And then I'm just going to mix it up into a thin, but it's not completely watery, it's thin, but I'm just going to see how that looks on the model, and I think I could do that being a tiny little bit darker. Errant hair in my my oil paint mix here, so I'm just going to add another bit of the Payne's grey. In actual fact, I've now gone completely the other way. And this is the thing about what we're doing, it's as much as anything, it's about experimenting and playing around with the colour until you get something close to what you want. So I've gone the other way. I don't want it to be this dark, so I'm going to add another dollop of the pale grey, and hopefully that's going to get us to the an acceptable middle ground. Yeah, I'm pretty happy. That's pretty much what I was looking for, so I'm just going to add a tiny little bit more. Thinner that. Okay, with that done, I'm just going to check again. Yeah, I think you can probably see that. So some people apply a pin wash. I prefer to just give the model a pretty good slathering over with the oil paint. The thinner will evaporate off in a very few minutes, leaving just wet oil paint. The beauty of oil paint is that it's the time it takes to dry. So whilst the thinner will have evaporated away, the oil paint itself will still be wet. So I hope, as you can see, there's nothing subtle about this at all. It's just literally slathering your chosen colour all over the model quite liberally. Okay, and that's the underside, actually, with the oil wash applied. What I'm going to do is, because I want the topside wash to be darker, I'm going to add a proportion of black to my mix here. Again, immediately overdoing it. Black is a very dense colour, as you might suspect, so I'm just going to tip away a bit of my mix here. And proceed adding the pale grey. Okay, so there's a medium to dark grey colour, which should go quite nicely against the topside colours. So basically, I'm just going to repeat the process I've just done for the underside, and that is slather the model with the wash. The trick here is the fact that I'm using different mediums. The wash is an oil based and enamel thinner based wash, but it's going over lacquer, so it will not attack. It's not going to attack the paintwork. It'd be the same if you painted the model with acrylics. You could use an enamel wash because the enamel will not attack the acrylic. So one of the tricks with modelling quite often is just making sure you pick your materials carefully so that they don't attack previous work. Okay, so there's a base wash actually applied. So it's a case of waiting for that to dry now, so that we can remove all the excess. Now I'm going to use a hairdryer to speed the drying up. So I'll be back with you in a few minutes when it's. Well, you don't need to watch me blowing a hairdryer over a model, do you? Okay, so here's the wash after it's been force dried a few minutes later, and now it's a case of removing the excess. For this, I'll use kitchen towel. Okay, and it really is a case of taking a bit of kitchen towel and going over the surface of your model, just wiping it free of excess. Again, as before, nothing particularly complex or subtle about this. It's just working over the model. Now, when your when your piece of tissue gets too much of the oil paint on it, obviously you just dispose of that and move on to a fresh bit. You can use, certainly on a larger model, you'll use quite a lot of kitchen roll on this stage. And this is what I like to do, get to this stage on my model without too many minor or fragile parts attached, because it's quite a vigorous operation, this. And you really need to keep going over the model with fresh bits of tissue, getting as much of the excess off as you can, because it will settle into nooks and crannies and can give quite an unpleasant stained effect in those corners and things like that. I hope you can see that that's worked quite well. It's also added a kind of slight darker patina to the overall finish that I'm quite happy with as well. As I say, it's all part of the weathering process. So one area I'm noting that some of the wash is collected is in the division line between the rocker cover bulges here on the Seafire 15 and the fuselage, so it's important to get in there and make sure you remove as much of the excess as possible, so you don't get a nasty stained effect there at the end. You can see the more I polish, it's still removing oil paint from the surface, so keep going. Okay, so that's that done. You know, from start to finish, it's taken about 20 minutes to wash and clean the excess wash off of this model. So I hope that's showing up all right for you. It's quite a subtle wash on this one, but I'm quite satisfied with that. So with that done, the next stage is to start looking at putting the markings on the model. So that'll be the next stage. So join me then.